Irene is a magazine editor, living in 1973, a time marked by a military era, during which a military coup has taken place. The military government has declared a state of emergency, and everyone, especially the privileged classes of society, take this state very seriously, altering it to see no evil, speak no evil, and tell no evil. As an individual, her mother takes these phrases very seriously so as not to interfere with anything unrelated to herself. This way, she can elevate them to the lofty social status she desires. She lives according to the will of God's manner. An old family residence, her mother has turned it into a nursing home, so she can maintain this family after her mother leaves. Her life is confined to her small family members, namely Rosa, Cleo, her dog, her mother, and the elderly in the nursing home. This includes a man they call Colonel and a woman named Mrs. Josefina. She is engaged to her cousin Gustavo, who also serves in the military. Her life is very simple until she opens her eyes. That day her mother calls her into the room. She sees her mother holding some gifts from Brazil, and her mother tells her that she has let Rosa put them in the room. She tells her mom she is going out, and when her mom asks her what if Gustavo calls, she assures her mom that Gustavo will not call. Another woman, named Maria Elena, is visited by Dr. Francisco. She goes to talk with him. The doctor comforts her to speak out everything she has experienced. She narrates how she was blocked on the road by some men. Their car was overturned. She says this man hit them, injuring them. They kept begging for help, but they refused. At that moment, she was thinking about her son Gabriel. She says she really wishes she had died in the whole event. She lights a cigarette, letting herself calm down in the atmosphere, then continues. She says the man asks her to do what he wants if she doesn't want him to kill her husband. So she accepted. She watched that man touch her body and molest her, while her husband was in the room next to her. That man left, and when he came back, she heard two voices and extra hands on her. She couldn't stop them. On the other hand, photographer Francisco goes to Irene's magazine store to find her. He asks at the reception, but he sees her assistant, who immediately takes him to her office. When she sees him, she asks him if he's a photographer looking for work. The first question she asks is whether he is on any government list. He tells her he isn't on the blacklist, so he continues to show her his work samples. She doesn't look at them, but instead asks him if he's hungry and invites him to lunch. In the restaurant, she asks about any of her articles he's read. He tells her about the super hormone article, in which she used a phrase, that pregnancy is resistance. She is impressed with him and tells him that there are some things that should not be said at their work. Words like butt, abortion, he adds freedom. She notices he is not one to shy away from discussing this system, as everyone avoids this topic. So she asks him again if he is not on the blacklist. He explains that perhaps his father is a retired anarchist in Spain, or his brothers Jose and Javier are also on the list. But he is not. He is a psychologist. He realizes that his way of thinking cannot oppose it. He decides to find another job that is not just wedding or birthday photography. She hires him and asks him to pick her up for work from home the next day. The waiter brings the bill. He insists on paying and also touches her hand. The next day, he goes to the Will of God's Manor to pick her up. He meets her mother, who has not taken the time to tell him she's engaged. She tells him they're going to interview a woman named Evangeline, who said to have the ability to create miracles. She takes his bike and rides behind him. He asks her about Gustavo, and she tells him that she has been engaged to Gustavo since she was a child, and that he is a captain. She tells him Gustavo's favorite poem about the dead groom. Francisco stops the bike. He tells her Gustavo is a fascist. Only they would use such a phrase, but she denies it. They continue their journey. They arrive at Evangeline's house, knowing she'll come out at noon. At 12 o'clock, she starts creating miracles. As they take pictures of her, others seek her help. The army arrives. She tries to tell them Francisco works for her and shows her business card. But they treat Francisco roughly. The commander calls his subordinate Predio, asking if Evangeline is his sister. The spirit on a little girl causes fires around. The commander thinks this is his enemy, so he starts shooting everywhere. As Irene confronts him, he says that Predelio has disclosed to him his sister's issue. He wants to solve it. He goes to hold Evangeline, but she pushes him away, throwing him into the mud. She approaches him and hits him again. He gets up, telling his soldiers to follow him, even though he is carrying Francisco's camera. When they get home, Irene tells them they will try again on this issue. She pecks him and says goodnight. A few days later, he runs into her, quite upset, as he didn't see her seen over the weekend. He asks if Gustavo is around, and invites her for dinner. She agrees to have dinner with him that Thursday. Gustavo joins them as well. He refuses to shake hands with a homosexual man who Eileen introduces him to. This infuriates Francisco. He follows the man home, and they start chatting. On Thursday, Eileen goes to his house. She gets closer to his father, a fascist, and his mother also tells him to marry Eileen. This is despite him telling her that he is engaged. Francisco's brother tells Francisco to make sure he finds out the name of the man who is harassing Maria, so he goes to interview her again. He tells her to tell him their names so that they will be punished. Later he goes with Irene to find Evangeline. However, when they arrive there, Evangeline's mother tells her that the commander has taken the girl away and her son has been imprisoned as well. She assures the crying woman that she will find Evangeline. This changes her life. She talks about all the problems and atrocities committed by the soldiers. She searches for Evangeline, entering the hospital with the remains of those killed by the police. She can't take it anymore, so Phyllis has Francisco take her out. After waiting outside, she tells them they should go back to the office. While waiting by a tree, he goes to kiss her, but she stops him, telling him she has engaged to Gustavo, who has been waiting for her so she will marry him. They return to his house. But when they arrive there, they see Francisco's brother Javier hanging on the tree. He has killed himself. After the funeral, he tells her that his brother was not always like this. He had a life before it was destroyed by the military. Irene should be careful not to clash with the wrong people. Evangeline's mother, Digma, is telling her how to find Colonel Ramirez. She dresses seductively, and she confronts Ramirez. Ramirez is telling her that he released Evangeline the day before, and that Fidelio is transferred. She leaves to meet a colonel who works with Ramirez. Although he tries to touch her, she tells him he can do so next time. She is recording all of his statements about Ramirez. She meets with Francisco again, and shows him a recording of the colonel saying Ramirez has defiled Evangeline and came back with a pick and hoe, which means Evangeline is already buried. He tells her his brother works with the cardinal, collecting evidence against the military, and they can cooperate. Digma also visits, and they ask her where Fidelio is hiding. She gets the location of Fidelio from Digma, and visits him at the side of the mountain. After providing clothes to Ramirez, he reveals where Ramirez is hiding. He and Francisco put her together. When she sees the bodies there, she feels like vomiting. Francisco manages to take a few photos, even though he also feels nauseous. After the investigation ends, they rest together at the side of the mountain. There, he starts kissing her, and then they start having sex. They are giving all the evidence to his brother, and his brother is handing this evidence to the church. The church investigates the mountain. They see all the bodies. Irene and Francisco are watching the news together. Her mother stands up angrily, claiming that Francisco has corrupted her daughter, and she will report to Gustavo. But she tells her that Gustavo will come the next day. That day, she breaks up with Gustavo, telling him she has fallen in love with someone else. She receives a call from the sergeant, who tells her he believes Evangeline should get justice. He gives her a book, in which all of Ramirez's atrocities are included. On his way home, he gets hit by a car. She also hands the book over to Josefina to keep for her. A few days later, she gets shot on the street. She is taken to have surgery, and Gustavo also comes to check on her. While Irene is unconscious, the soldiers raid her house, injuring her to find the book. Gustavo realizes that he cannot protect her from the impact of what is about to happen, so he asks Francisco to take her away as soon as possible. The general ensures her hospital is under the surveillance of military officials. When she wakes up, she hears that the general has destroyed all evidence and all charges against Ramirez. The captain says that the mountain was exploited by terrorists. Therefore, when she wakes up, she also tells them to go see Josefina, asking her to bring out the book and the audio. He tells her they can't release it before she escapes. They disguise and leave the country. Before leaving, he hands the book and the audio to the cardinal, asking them to mail it out after a week. He escapes with her, disguising themselves as a newlywed couple going on a honeymoon to Spain. They stop at a hotel. Gustavo, after hearing about the military operation, betrays his leader, leading to his death. However, he doesn't say anything he knows about them until he dies. The military traces them and chases after them, so they escape with a horse. They stay in Spain for 15 years in the struggle of people like them. Chile gains independence in 1989. They return to Chile, and the first thing they do is to pay respects at Gustavo's grave. The movie ends here. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.